Now you're all kind of spread out, but you know, if I were leading a children's group, I'd say, now come on down to the center here, everyone. But I won't. As you heard, I'm John Stalker. I'm, I guess, an old-time actor, and still current though, and voice director, casting director, teacher now as well. And Susan, why don't you say? Oh, you've got your own microphone, so we can talk at the same time.
Hello, hello. It doesn't work.
You see, this is what happens when you start a long time ago. It's called on. It's funny that hasn't changed since the 80s, though.
That's very interesting. I usually have somebody who does that for me.
You did today.
Exactly.
Do we need these?
We don't need these.
We don't need these.
We know how to talk.
We know how to project.
So what was the question?
Just a couple. A little bit of an intro for yourself.
A couple of words. Well, I'm actually recognizing a lot of folks from last night, so I have to be very careful not to repeat myself. But last night we weren't talking specifically about the 80s, and I can't believe that we were actually. I can't believe that any of you are here to hear about the 80s. I thought that it was of no interest to anybody else in the world. But one of the things that we were talking about last night was the fact that things have changed a lot since then, and certainly the ways of doing animation have changed. I'm sure, John, you remember back in the day, a lot of the recording was done ensemble, which means that every single actor was in the room, in the studio at the same time. In those days, we rarely dubbed a finished product. So Sailor Moon was a finished product that came in from Japan, and the English was added afterwards. But back in the 80s, nobody did that. All the cartoons were fresh, off the written page.
Original voice.
Original voice. So the script came first, the dialogue was recorded by the actors, and then it got animated. And it was rarely sent overseas to be animated. It was animated by Canadian animators and artists. And that is why and it was very expensive, as you can imagine. And there was a great pride taken by everybody involved in the project. It was a collaborative affair, because we were providing the vocal quality and personality of the characters, and our Canadian animator counterparts were supplying the visuals. And sometimes we actually had an opportunity to meet some of the animators afterwards, which was incredible. So they had been sitting there hour after hour after hour after hour, drawing the characters while listening to our voices. So they knew our voices better than we knew our voices. So and I think the products spoke for themselves. I think, and then specifically Nelvana was the kingpin, the king of the castle at that time, and their products are, I believe, extraordinarily well made.
Interesting, the 80s. Further to what Susan said, and I hope I don't overlap, but if I do, please understand, or if she overlaps me, it's because we really felt a special kind of passion for animation that was done back then, and I'm sure emotionally we both feel the same way. If you look back to the 80s, it was when we're talking, I don't know if any of you know Norman McLaren, who was an animator for the National Film Board many years ago, and considered Canada's the grandfather of Canadian animation. Very simplistic work, but between him and now, the beginning of the 80s, and as Susan mentioned, Nelvana, that was the cutting edge of Canada becoming the incredible force, Toronto in particular, the incredible force that it is today. Today there's no more animation. Toronto's the #1 center for animation production in the world. LA is not as big as Toronto in terms of animation.
Isn't that something?
We have at any time in Toronto 3 or 4 dubbing projects, but probably 25 series going on at any given time, plus animated features. It's the center. And people come from all over the world witnessed the Ottawa Animation Festival, where people come from all over the world basically to mingle and schmooze with people from Toronto. And the 80s, it was really, this was Hollywood North before the film industry claimed Hollywood North as their own, because this is where so much work was done. Nelvana, as Susan said, started out with Rock and Rule and then started into the series work, into Care Bears and Babar.
Strawberry Shortcake.
Strawberry Shortcake and Ewoks and Droids. All that early formative stuff. And the Americans took a look at Canada, Toronto in particular, and said, wow, they're really cooking up there. And how much is their dollar? 67 cents at the time.
Yeah.
Well, if you can save a third of your dollar by coming up here, getting the extraordinary talent that we have, plus all our animators, everything was a third off. It was right. It was better than a sale at Sears, right? So that they were flooding our market, bringing with them not small but huge packages. There was a company called Deke that came up here. Many of you are familiar with DIC. We used to joke about it because we said that Deke stood for Do It Cheap.
Or do it in Canada.
There you go. So they absolutely flooded our market with work. And I'm sure, Susan, you would remember those days.
Yep.
Going to 3-4 animation sessions in a day.
Yep.
Because the pool was so tiny. The acting pool, especially the animation pool, even smaller than that.
Yeah.
The people who were good, the Americans didn't have time to mess around. They came up here and they already knew who they were calling. They would call the agent, I want to see so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. Half the time they didn't even go through a casting session. You would simply be called, and you weren't called in to do 6 or 13 or even 26. They came out of the chute with 65 episodes. So you can imagine, and if you're doing 3 sessions a day on average, and you're doing 65 episodes of all, we did very, very well. I don't mean to sound crass by talking about the money, but hey, you know, it's a big part. We all have to live and eat, and we all want to improve our lives. So money's part of it. I mean, if you can do something you love and make money at it, thank you, right? So we were absolutely exploding here during the 80s. Of course, the strength of the dollar, and the recession of the late 80s kind of killed things.
And then they started to bring in, and I have to sort of backtrack something. When I was saying before that the quality of the product was excellent in that day and age, I'm not saying that it's not excellent now. I don't mean to say that by comparison. I'm just saying that it was homegrown. It was, there's something, I don't know if it's just a sort of a patriotic remnant, but I really like the idea of everybody involved in the project being Canadian and being a part of that family. And then they started to realize, they would say, well, wait a second, we can ship it overseas and to strange places. I remember doing a cartoon once and they said, we're animating it in Finland. And I went, Finland? Why? And thinking what an odd thing. Not that there's anything wrong with Finland, but for some reason they could get the same, what they thought was the same animation done for like a quarter of the price. So it got sent over there. So all those Canadian animators suddenly weren't working. And so bit by bit by bit, I don't even know if there are any animators left here, although I think there's a resurgence.
There is a bit of a resurgence. I don't know if it's a nostalgia factor or if they simply are realizing, you know, we're spending a lot of money anyway. Why not spend it here? I think in large part, Susan, what's happened, the difference between production back then and production now is that back then there wasn't a merchandise aspect. Now there's such a huge merchandising aspect to animation that the animation itself, the project itself, is secondary to the sales. You know that series is gone once the products are in the bargain bin at Walmart. It's over, right?
Yeah.
They may finish up their obligations. They may not even do that because it's just not worth it. When you realize that an animation today, And 22 minutes of animation, which is your 30 minutes, and 8 minutes of commercials, costs approximately $350,000 each episode. Now, companies like Spin Master can actually record and produce those shows, give them to the network and say, no charge, and then put the products out on the market that represent that show and make a lot of money. They can spend that $10 million and give it away. You couldn't do that in the old days. So now money has become kind of less of an issue. So it's $380,000. So it's $320. It's like we're really not talking production costs any longer. So I think that's in part why they're coming back here. And I think as well, you have that worldwide feeling of let's bring it home. I think we look at that Walmart image and say, boy, are we ever tired of buying cheap products? I'm going to spend $1 more and buy Canadian or American for that matter, because it's basically the same. And I think that has in some way spilled over.
And one thing that happened, and this to me, that this whole thing started when Sailor Moon was acquired by a woman named
Nicole Tuo.
Thank you, Nicole Tuo.
And Louis Hurtubise, Optimum.
Optimum Productions, and as I was saying last night, I do believe that they probably undercut every other production company in the world to get their hands on it, or maybe they were just incredibly prescient and knew that it was really something, it was different. But this was the first time, or maybe I had done it once or twice, but this was the first time that I worked on a project where the animation had already been done, which is really, it was so amazing just to see, there it is, the finished product with the, the sound, the music, the lights. I mean, of course, when we were recording it, all that stuff we weren't hearing all that stuff, but it was, to all intents and purposes, a finished product. And so now, instead of having the opportunity to sit there with my own script and create my own character from my own heart and soul and the words on the paper, now I was a little bit more restricted, of course, because there's a time restriction, and a time restriction. So there's no place to be able to if I wanted to emphasize a certain word, well, those words are going by so fast. You just thank your lucky stars if you can get the words out, let alone emphasize whatever you want to emphasize. So the speed, as I said, I think it kind of helped make it sparkle. I think it made it come alive, because everybody's just going by the seat of their pants, which it adds a life and a tension that I think was positive. But this was an unusual situation because we were dubbing an already finished product, and I remember thinking, I wonder if this is actually going to do anything. And then I saw one of the finished episodes after it had been dubbed into English with all of our voices. And I thought, that's kind of cool. But it was so different. And the idea that there were, count them, 5 female protagonists in a cartoon, in an animated, I'm always going to call it a cartoon. I know it's anime or an animated series or whatever. But anyway, that's just going back to what we always used to refer to those things. But to the 5 young female characters in control of their lives and their destiny, and helping each other along and helping each other out during these crisis periods. And also that they managed to sneak in the morality. That whole section of Sailor Moon says, and she's just sitting there and chatting about, well, when this happens, and somebody says this at school, well, I think that this is what, and to me, it was absolutely groundbreaking. How marvelous to have, as a young girl, to have somebody who's exactly your age, who's cool, who's hip, who sounds like Sailor Moon, and she's just so compelling as a character. And every single actress we've had who's portrayed her has done a bang-up job. We all know that. And to have that as a role model, and to suddenly it is cool to stand up and say, no, I don't think you're allowed to insult me as I walk down the hallway. I think it's rude. I went, my God, the time has finally come. And now we kind of take it for granted. But in those days, I can assure you, it was absolutely unheard of. And I remember thinking, this is either going to fly or it's just going to go, meow. And it flew because people responded positively. Should we ask for questions or do you want to?
You're doing great on your own. I'll just sit here and listen
No.
And listen, I should tell you, kudos to Susan. She is the only of all the scouts, including Sailor Moon, is the only one who was there from day one right through to the very end.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, she's the only one. The others came and went. And
came back.
Yeah, and came back. And I myself came in halfway in the series. I was like I guess I was the third voice director.
Yeah.
Second, really, because Tracy did what?
6.
She was there for about 20 minutes. Right? And then she got fired. So we were talking about this flighty producer would fire people on the spot in the studio.
Yeah.
Say, you're terrible, get out. Right? And that's what you did to the first voice director. Right?
Who was also Sailor Moon.
No, the second. Didn't she replace Roland?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Was that the same director or other person that hired people actors based on their facial recognition to
Yes.
the film there?
Well, this was very much in the live action. This producer, thank you for that. When Nicole hired people, when she hired people, she would hire actors or actresses who looked like the character they were going to be
Is that
dubbing.
right?
When she did it in animation, because I did a lot of other animation things
Right.
for her afterwards, and I worked for her in doing a lot of live action dubbing, French to English. She would only hire people that looked like the on-camera person.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Tracy did direct. I mean, I remember being directed by Tracy.
Yes, she
And she was
did a
also
couple of-
playing Sailor Moon.
She did play Sailor Moon for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
First Sailor Moon was Linda Valentine,
Nope,
wasn't it?
it was Tracy.
Was Tracy the first and then Linda Valentine?
Nope.
And then Terry Hawks?
Terry Hawks and then Linda. Linda was the third one.
Was she?
Yeah, I think we heard last night that she came in around episode 80.
Right, okay.
So,
Hey, it's a long time ago,
it's
what
a
can
long
I say?
time
Yeah.
ago. And,
I have trouble dealing with being the third voice director, so.
Anybody have any questions about Sailor Moon or about the 80s or, yes?
Okay, one, I just wanted to say I literally grew up on the show, so this is an awesome chance for me to talk to you guys.
Oh, great, good stuff.
And I wanted to know if you two are involved in any way with the reboot of Sailor Moon that's coming out.
No. The new Sailor Moon, because I was interested in, of course, following up and continuing. But I should preface all of that by saying one of the things that, as well, that has changed from when we started to now is the loyalty factor. There's no loyalty, or virtually no loyalty any longer. I just find in terms of using performers again or staying with the same, it's all money based. If somebody can get things done cheaper now, they will do it cheaper. That's in the animation world and in the commercial world. It doesn't matter. Money screams. So back to this, I did some investigating because I thought, oh, they're going to do it in Toronto, of course. Well, no, they're not. They're going to be doing it in I believe, out of Dallas. Funimation is the name of the company. It used to be called AC.
Funimation is doing it?
Funimation is doing it, I believe. And it used to be ACJ or something or other animation. I can't remember the name of it. But or was it Houston? Either Houston or Dallas. I think it's Dallas. Isn't that where Funimation's based?
I think it's Houston.
Is it? Wherever. That is what I understand. But that has been in limbo now for close to 3 years.
So they have the rights to it?
I believe they do.
Okay.
So it's going to be a completely different cast, I would suspect. One of the things you can't do with dubbing, with voice replacement, is do it from afar. So you would either have to fly performers down,
That's right.
fly your hard goods up, set up here and do it and then take your finished, or email your finished project back. But you can't, you've got to actually see the screen, see the band going by in order to match the lips and match the pace and the emotion. So, if it's done down there, it'll be a totally new production crew. And I'm going to assume even the production values between then and now have changed. And I think they'll want to instill higher end production values in it. You've got to do something to up the product, I think, if you want to continue selling it. You can't just do what you've done before. Even though a lot of you who are Sailor Moon fans would say, oh, keep it the same, keep it the same. You've got to realize that you're dealing to a new audience that is faster, probably younger, keener. They want to see different, they want to see upgraded production values, and they want to see
And they want more
more
violence?
current. They may want more violence, but they're definitely going to want a quicker pace. The world is a faster place in every respect. So they've got to appeal to the young market, not sort of you guys who are, yeah, you watch, but you're not the buying public anymore in that sense.
Any other, oh, there we
Oh. Do you mind? Sad.
Oh, I
Or
just
Heather?
moved over, I'm sorry, I just moved over so that I can see
Okay.
that.
Okay, Heather?
I was just sort of more comments than questions to something you had just said earlier. Is one, I don't think using cartoon to describe Sailor Moon or any other anime from Japan is an incorrect terminology, because the word anime is from the word animation,
go. Okay, which is
which is
To give-
cartoons.
cartoons,
We
Japanese,
only
yeah.
distinguish the word anime to say that it originated from Japan. So once again, it's just using the English word cartoon. I personally have no issue with
Isn't
that.
it to give life?
So I
Isn't
would hope that
animate to
others
give
would-
life?
Yeah,
Yes.
to animate, yeah, to enliven, to inspire, to inspirit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get
And
her.
The other
Well, I looked it up for,
The other comment I have was that I can't remember exactly the content of the article, but I had to read an article for school a few years ago. And
yeah?
it talked about Sailor Moon and Pokemon, and Sailor Moon was actually considered to be, despite everyone in this room, like Sailor Moon is awesome and amazing and very popular, but it was considered to be a failure.
In
In
Japan?
Japan?
Here,
Really?
in North America. And you know exactly why? Because of what you were talking about, product.
Right.
They didn't sell very much product, not even close to what Pokemon
Right.
sold.
Because Pokemon was the first time that they actually came across with an actual, pardon me, with an actual product with it. I mean, wasn't that one of the first dual productions? where
Yeah,
there
with
wasn't-
Sailor Moon with the figurines, that was almost an afterthought.
Yeah, whereas
Yeah.
Pokemon, the whole thing was the
It was
product.
the product.
I think that it was based.
When it's
on-
merch-based,
So as far as like corporations and stuff, I mean, to the fans, it was a huge success, a huge impact on a lot of people's lives. But to the corporations, to the people putting this stuff out, it was a failure because it didn't sell enough product.
mhm,
And it goes back to where you're saying, people are saying like today, if they sell the product, here, have the episodes for free. We
Yeah.
just want to make, they're going to make money off the product. So
Yes.
that sort of speaks to the whole thing you were talking about earlier in terms of what's important to the people putting this stuff out.
right, so expect perhaps this next season of Sailor Moon
Product-based.
to be product-based. Again, I think it's gotta all be recut to establish that.
Hmm. Yeah?
Just building off of what she said about being product-based. I'm from the States, and I remember in the late 90s when Sailor Moon would get shown, it showed at 6:30 in the morning. My brother and I would my brother, who at the time was, like, I was 17, he was 16, we were getting up early. It's like, okay, we'll eat cereal, and that way we'll be ready to still be ready to school around the time and watch Sailor Moon. Because it would be Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon. Only anime we had regular access to at the time.
Right.
And I would have killed for Sailor Moon product. Sailor Moon t-shirt, the little magic wand. I don't care if I was 17. I would have bought it. I would have hung it on my wall. I would have been happy.
And there was nothing to buy.
There was nothing to buy. Every once in a while, I would find a doll, like in a dusty doll in a clearance bin in a Toys R Us, and
Right.
it was so freaking ugly. I was like, wait a minute, is $1 great? I'm gonna microwave this baby.
But you think back to how many How many series had products attached to them? If you go back, you can go back to Care Bears
Yeah.
and get the Care Bears. That's about it. That's
It was
about it.
not
It didn't even
customary.
cover everybody. It simply wasn't.
You could get all the Care Bears in their plush forms, you could get them in the little collectibles, they had.
Now you
covers.
Now you can.
No, I remember watching Care Bears in the 80s, they had, this stuff was everywhere.
Was it?
Oh, really?
Well, I'm saying it was the only one that I can recall that had any kind of merchandising attached to it in a big way.
Yeah,
You could always get a figurine, you could always buy a Barbie, but
But they didn't think to market it similar to they were doing American cartoons in the 80s, which were 30-minute cartoons.
it was the entertainment value of the show. I mean, they've changed merchandise. Now the cartoon, every episode has to go through psychologists and psychiatrists. You've got to get a log line that talks about the educational value, all the safety issues. It's so sanitized
Yes.
now and goes through so many levels of bureaucracy. You've got no idea. And trust me, I see it on another level now, Susan, because of the voice directing. I see sometimes scripts that come through, they'll say, oh, this is just a working script, and take a look at it, get an idea. We'll have the final script in 10 days for you. And they don't look alike. I mean, they're different because you can't, everything has to be politically correct. And it is nuts. I'm doing something for Disney now. I want to chew my arm off. I'm telling you, they're nuts. I mean, they are so specific.
And it's just
Changing
not
words.
creative, is it? It's from a corporate law-abiding, somebody who's got a rule book. Oh, and it just stifles creativity. It's
Yeah, and when in
horrible.
the 80s, I mean, I don't know if there were any like really mass murderers that came out of the 80s? Any
Because
more
of
than
watching
from
cartoons?
watching cartoons, from watching somebody fall and bang their head and a big bump come
up
up?
on Bugs Bunny, and so far I have not spent a lot of time shooting the beaks off of ducks or blowing
Right.
blowing up various cats and other
Right,
creatures.
or getting that, getting the blowtorch, and then the little image
Yeah.
disintegrates. Because the next scene, cut to, hi, I'm back.
Haven't dropped in
Sorry,
on anyone's
please.
head.
No, I also don't think all Mexicans talk like Speedy Gonzalez.
I have heard rumors that the new Sailor Moon LB line is going to be a reboot, but you've said that it's a continuation, so which do you really think that it will be?
I don't know. I haven't been able to get that information. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah.
You have information?
It's
Bless you.
going to be a reboot, more faithful to the manga. However, the possibility of continuing further from that is really impressive because of the fact that the way that the manga left off is like really huge open
Open-ended.
for
Right.
development for more series, so they can manage to cover the same amount that you covered in the original series, but in a much shorter time frame, and still allow for more seasons, more product, and stuff that no one will have had before. So it's starting from scratch, and they're going to try and springboard off of it.
Oh, thank you. That's excellent. So
Yeah.
there'll be some re-editing and recutting, and they'll tighten it up. And that's very good. Thank you. Have you also heard about where it's being done? Have you heard the same as I?
Just
Houston or-
just
From last night.
Last night.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're right about Funimation, I am ecstatic because they are a really good company.
Well, I'm not excited because I want it to be done here.
If it was done here, it would also.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Okay, you can stay now.
Yes, back there?
What was your favorite episode to do since you started playing?
For Sailor Moon?
Yeah.
Absolutely, my favorite episode was the episode where I was introduced because it was I had a chunk of lines. It was good, and she ran the gamut from here to there to everywhere. It was, and I was just as surprised as anybody when I'm going, oh, we didn't, as we said last night, we rarely got a chance to read the script beforehand. So it was just, those words are going by and they come out of your mouth, and
And we didn't even do an episode a day. If Susan came in or any of the other performers came in, you might be working on 6 different episodes.
Yeah.
And it would all be, well, today we've
Yeah,
got
a
Sailor
section of
Mars
this, a section
for
of this.
6 hours. We've got Sailor Jupiter for 4 hours. I got Sailor Moon in for X number. And you would do
Yeah.
bits and pieces from umpteen episodes, plus the pickups, the lines that were changed or added. In terms of story, I had no idea what was going on half the time. I mean, like
But
you say,
that particular, sorry to interrupt, that
No, please.
particular episode was at the beginning.
Right.
And because I did have a ton of lines in that episode. So we just spent the whole day, just literally the whole day, what am I saying? Oh, the luxury, that would have been, I think it took an hour. So we just did the whole darn episode from start to finish. And that was how I really kind of got to know her. And there were some moments, but up until that point, it had all been so, okay, do this, oh, say blah, 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 blah. It was like very, very animated, and she was always fighting and angry. Well, they always had to be fighting and angry at some point in the episode. But in this one, all of a sudden, she was sitting down, and she was talking, and she was flirting, and she's going, and I thought, oh, this is great. Like, it was a chance to actually see all these other sides to her. So that was by far my favorite episode, and I after that,
it was downhill.
it was downhill. No, there never was another episode where it featured that character, Sailor Jupiter, as much. So that would have to be because we're all line hogs. How many lines do I have? That's the first thing you ask. How
Well,
many
in
lines do I
dubbing,
have?
you know what? In dubbing, you're paid by the line.
Actually,
And so
yeah.
it's somewhat critical.
Yeah.
You always tried to get, and you could do in dubbing, in the dubbing rates, you can also do extra characters. So anybody that, including me, because I did a lot of voice work on Sailor Moon too, I would get thrown, the delivery guy and the pizza guy and and then so
It's
it'd
all
be somebody,
adding up.
a doctor, and then you get the total of the number of lines. In original voice, you get paid per voice, whether you've got 2 or 102. It's a sliding scale, but you get paid for additional characters. And in dubbing or versioning, whatever you want to call it, you get paid per line or per hour, whichever is the greater.
So not that we want to talk about payment.
No, but hey, you know what?
No.
You-
No, and that is just like such a quintessential. All right, so do you all know that I'm just going to throw this out there, the typical actor story, and I can tell it because I'm an actor, so I'm allowed to. And if you don't laugh, it means that you don't have any hammy actor in you at all. But it's a story that every single actor has ever heard. So this and has to laugh at because it's unfortunately very true. So this poor actor comes driving up to his house one day, and oh my God, the whole house has burned down to the ground. And he's standing there and he goes, oh my God. And he's just looking at this house and it's not there anymore. And his neighbor comes running across the street and he says to the guy, I hate to tell you this, but you can see your house is burned down. I'm sorry, your wife and your 9 children were in the house and they all perished in the fire. And the guy goes, oh my God, this is so awful. And also, I have to give you this. And he hands him a script. And he said, and your agent dropped by to give you this script. And the actor goes, my agent came to my house. All right, okay, you have to be an actor. So this, it just shows you how cheap not cheap, but it's just like, my agent came to my house, So it's just meaning that sometimes we kind of get a little bit too caught up in that, like, how many lines do I have? So then that's by the by, the very same heart and soul that hopefully fuels all of us is also the heart and soul that you're listening to when you're listening to some of these episodes. So it's a childlike thing. Let's just put it that way, right?
Interesting.
Childlike.
You're talking about heart and soul and camaraderie, and I'll reflect back in the 80s again too. One of the things I liked about it was there was a different kind of camaraderie back then too, because we were doing ensemble work.
Yes.
I know this is just sort of taking. I'm being somewhat tangential, but there was a very, very different spirit in the studio then. I mean, we knew we were, and again, to pick up on the other theme, we were joking about, we knew we were making money. There was no question about it. But I couldn't wait to get to the studio. At that time, I wasn't voice directing. It was, say, the 80s. I was just a performer, just to confirm. And I couldn't wait to get in because I knew I was going to see people. It was looser, and because the money wasn't the huge issue for anybody at that time, and because, like I say, Americans coming and saying, okay, you're doing 65 episodes. It's like, oh my God, that's a lot. Today, if you get it's 13 or 26 is standard. That's the standard run, then you wait to hear if you're renewed, right? But, you know, we knew that they were relaxed, they were comfortable with us. We could go in, we could kid around. I can remember sessions where I was in tears laughing.
Yeah.
In tears. Production, and I know other people were too, they would have to stop. They couldn't record because somebody said something or did something.
Or the performance was so funny.
Yeah.
Your fellow actor was so damn funny, and the guy across the microphone, this has happened so many times. You're standing in the circle, and the other performer is doing whatever, and you go, oh my God, that's really funny, I'm going to start laughing. And then you have to like go like this.
Right. And then somebody goes,
yeah. One person.
and then that's it. But there was a special kind of camaraderie. The competition wasn't as fierce. We all knew that if you don't get that one, you'll get that one.
Yeah,
You know, or maybe you get both, maybe you get neither. But tomorrow there'll be something else coming up from LA for us, or something else being homegrown. And that was, you know, further to the theme of this this panel. The 80s was special in that sense. We just we were kind of happy-go-lucky. I don't know if it was a factor of our simply being younger.
Yeah, we were all the
which is
same.
part of it.
We were all the same age. There was nobody really older, and that was the other thing. There were no children playing children.
That's right.
Women, like me, played little boys. And then I can recall, actually this was when I auditioned for Tintin, for Snowy the dog. At first he was supposed to to talk. There was supposed to be dialogue. So I had a whole script of, you know, like tons and tons of lines for this dog. And I walk in to the audition room, and there are 4 other people in the room, and they're all aged 10, 11, and 12. And I'm thinking, what are they doing here? I mean, that's how bizarre it was. And I see they've got scripts, and I'm thinking, are they going to get, like, a real boy to do a boy? How absurd! I mean, it was just so outrageous, the fact that they were going to thinking of doing this. So I thought, because at that point I sort of had the little boy thing. I had quite a few roles under my belt and was getting a little more comfortable doing little boys. So the only thing that separated us, I used to have a few little seminars, and I would always tell this story because it's so great, because it's a really good thing to remember, is that you always have to, when you go into an audition, you always have to have something else up your sleeve. And the something else up my sleeve, which I didn't have up my sleeve, and those kids didn't, was that after I'd read my lines as Snowy the dog, you know, oh, Tintin, I think you're the greatest master ever. This is going to be so much fun. I hope I don't drown. So I read all my lines, and as I'm leaving, they say, oh, by the way, can you lay down a few barks? And I said, barks. And I think to myself, why didn't I practice any barks? I don't know how to bark. Oh, God. So I go, oh, 1 second. So I go, I say, oh, yeah, okay, fine. So I should have been completely prepared with, you know, barking and whimpering and snarling, because I'm playing a dog, for goodness sake. So that was a big boo-boo on my part. But I can assure you that those 4 kids, when they were asked to bark, they went, yeah, right. And they went, arf, arf, or some stupid thing. And it's good, because I had a mortgage to pay, and they didn't. So I think it was perfectly right
Absolutely.
that they cast me.
And you're older, and you paid a lot more dues.
I paid a
There
lot
you
more
go.
dues. And in the end of all, Tintin never said, Snowy never said one single word. So the only audition they had of anyone barking was me. And also, actually, for some reason, I just happened to have a knack for barking like a small dog. who can,
You know, I'm just, hey,
Yeah, just-
you're on your own now, girl.
And it comes in handy in all kinds of things.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
And further to what Susan said, these days, the trend, just again to compare then and now, the trend is to real voices more, so that the you and Julie and Stacy, I mean, there's
Linda?
occasional call, yeah, Linda, there's an occasional call for women to do little boys. It's not the way it sounded, sorry. Well, but
To do the voice of a
do the
little boy.
voice, thank you, little boy. But now they have 7, 8, when I cast or audition people, 7, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and they're out there. Those kids are out there now. It's frightening how good some of them really are, and every animation company now wants that. Other than Marathon, they still like they still like the girls to do boys' voices.
Because it's faster. It is faster.
It's faster. The thing is, you get when the difference is when I hire you or Julie, or they hire and I work with you. It is faster, but there's a certain rhythm that
Yep.
you give me
Yeah.
that is
Slick.
It's great and it works all the time. Kids are unpredictable. They'll give you a read sometimes that is like, whoa, or they'll read a line incorrectly.
But it's
And
good.
I'll turn around and say to the producer, don't get another take, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
leave that mistake. It's a mistake that an adult would never make.
Exactly.
And that's why now they want that real sound, is because there's an unpredictability about it.
And we'll go. Also, one thing that was told to me many, many moons ago, a producer said, you could sort of do well if you're doing little boys, because you have the right sound, but you don't have the right attack. And I said, I don't understand what you mean. And he said, boys attack when they talk. Girls sort of inhale or draw in, which is a horrible sociological, assessment. And maybe it worked better in those days. But for example, a little girl she's not, unless she's Sailor Junior. So a little girl is going to be, I can't believe it's more on an inhale, and this happened, and then I went over here. So it's the same voice I'm doing, but I'm pulling it in, and that gives it that sort of like little female quality. Whereas a boy, my voice goes outward, forward, push, push. That's what a boy does.
Aggressive.
It's the same sound that I'm making. Push, 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 push. Whereas, so one is sort of pulled in and one is punched out. And I thought, But as John said, it's not just the attack, it's that rhythm. And the rhythm that a kid has is no rhythm. And we're sort of slick. So that it's hard. And I could spend my whole life trying to sound like a 12-year-old kid. Sometimes I listen to them in the park. I live across from a school, and I'll just follow them so I can hear them talking. And I'll think, you can't.
No, there's
just-
an irregularity
Yes.
that's magical.
It is magical.
Yeah, it
is.
really is.
Sorry, there's.
Yes.
Well, I was going to ask because it's come up in a...
I'm sorry, a little louder,
I was
please.
going to ask because it's come up in a previous panel, but that one of the reasons why women were hired to do boys' voices was more because the series goes on for a certain length of time.
Yeah.
A boy's voice will change.
Yeah, when he reaches
So-
puberty.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's going on in the industry that they're trying to get boys' voices? Is it because the program...
They simply replace
They
now.
replace.
They simply replace.
Everybody's
There have been
replaceable.
8 or 9 Arthurs,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
They'll replace, replacing a lead character. I did a show called Mike the Night, I voice directed a show called Mike the Night for Nelvana, and they did a complete change in it. They sort of fired me, they replaced me. It wasn't like, you're fired, you did a bad job. But they were going through a whole change. Changed studios, changed engineers, changed production companies,
Big
changed
change.
everything. And they changed the kid who played Mike. He was nowhere near puberty. And his voice hadn't changed one iota and wasn't expected to. He was going from 10 to 11. He wasn't going to change. And they know that kids, the first time they hear it, might go, hey, that's a different guy. And then it's over.
Yeah, then
They
they
don't
adapt.
care. They just know now that it doesn't matter to them. They're not locked into the voice. They don't even listen, don't even look for sound-alikes now. It's just someone who can act.
So it's
Someone who
sort
can
of a
talk.
fundamental change that's kind of
I'm sorry?
So you're saying that that's sort of a fundamental change that's kind of happening in
Yes.
the industry itself?
Yeah,
You know what, I guess it's humbling because you have to realize that no one is irreplaceable.
that's right.
Nobody. And as, you know, you do your job and you hope that, you know, we were just talking about if they redo Sailor Moon, and will there be other people, other actors playing all the parts. And we know that from the internet that there is a very, very strong Sailor Moon support base out there. And it's probably larger than we realize. But even, and they've been petitioning, there's a woman named Deepa who's been corresponding with me for quite a while about this, and she's put together petitions. She's gone to the studio. She's gone to the studio, heads of studio in LA, you know, trying to get something off the ground. And she keeps putting the information out front that there is an incredible fan base, and that they want to see more product, and that they want to retain the voices that have already been used. And of course, it's just, they just go, are you kidding? Who cares? And so it's interesting. Apparently, the fans mean absolutely nothing, and their views and opinions mean absolutely nothing. And maybe the corporate people behind the scenes now, maybe they're right. Maybe that is exactly the way it is, and that the new product will come out and it'll be fine. Yeah?
I'm pretty sure I can speak for everybody in the Sailor Moon fandom. Like, characters, we develop a fondness and a likeness for who they are, but especially you, there is nobody that will play Jupiter as well as you ever existed.
Thank you all for coming. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Oh, okay.
Right now, they're going to be heading off to their autograph panels.
Okay.
That will be in Hall F at the TCC. If you're interested, please meet us there.
Thanks a lot, you guys,
Thank
for
you
coming.
very much. Thanks, Darren.